The sun was sinking low over the Arizona plains when the cowboy first heard the cry. It wasn't the howl of a coyote or the shriek of a hawk riding the warm air. It was human, thin, desperate, breaking against the wind like a glass bottle thrown too hard. He reined in his horse, Boone, and listened again. Silence followed, heavy and watchful. The land here had a way of swallowing sound, of daring you to doubt your own ears. The cowboy, folk around these parts called him Caleb Ward, rested a hand on the worn saddle horn and waited. When the cry came again, closer now, he swung down and followed it on foot, boots crunching softly through scrub and stone. Caleb had learned long ago not to rush. Rushing got men killed. He moved with the patience of someone who had buried friends and didn't intend to join them. He traced the sound to a dry wash where the earth dropped away and the shadows pooled cool and blue. There, huddled beneath a mesquite, were two girls no older than 10. Their hair was dark and tangled, faces streaked with dust and tears, eyes huge and bright with fear. Apache. He knew by the beadwork around one girl's wrist and the way the other held herself, straight-backed, proud, even in terror. They flinched when they saw him. Caleb stopped several paces away and raised his empty hands. "Easy," he said softly, the word barely more than a breath. He crouched so he wouldn't loom. The girls whispered to each other in their language, quick and urgent. One reached for a stone, then thought better of it. The other stared at Boone, who stood patiently with his head low, as if he understood that this moment required gentleness. Caleb took off his hat and placed it on the ground. It was an old trick, something a Comanche elder had once taught him after a long night of shared coffee and stories. "Lower yourself. Let the land see you're not hunting." He spoke again, slow and careful. "You're hurt." He pointed to his arm and mimed pain. They shook their heads. Thirst, then, he could see it in their cracked lips. He reached into his saddlebag and brought out a canteen, holding it where they could see before setting it down between them and backing away. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, the older girl crept forward, eyes never leaving Caleb's face. She took a sip, then another, and passed the canteen to her sister. Relief softened their features. Caleb felt his shoulders ease. He hadn't realized how tight they'd been. "Where's your family?" he asked, knowing they might not understand the words, but hoping the meaning would carry. He made a circle with his hands, pointed to the horizon. The older girl swallowed and pointed east, then shook her head and pointed west. "Lost. Or separated." Caleb's jaw tightened. This land didn't forgive children alone. Night was coming fast. The air cooled, shadows lengthened, and the coyotes would start up soon. Caleb couldn't leave them. He also knew that taking them into town would be a mistake. Fear bred fast in places where understanding grew slow. He made a decision that felt less like a choice and more like a duty. He gestured for them to follow, kept his movements unthreatening. They hesitated, then, after another whispered exchange, nodded. His cabin sat a mile north, tucked into a bend of cottonwoods where a spring seeped from stone. It was a modest place, one room, a small corral, a fire pit ringed with rocks. Caleb lit a lantern and offered them dried meat and bread. They ate with the hunger of children who'd walked too long without hope. He gave them blankets and showed them where to sleep, taking the floor himself near the door, his rifle within reach but pointed away. He didn't sleep much. The land spoke at night, and tonight it spoke louder. He thought of his own past, of the line he walked between worlds, too white for some, too Indian for others. His mother had been Apache, his father a ranch hand who never stayed long enough to be remembered kindly. Caleb had learned early that kindness was a language worth mastering, even when words failed. At dawn, the girls were awake and watching him. The older one spoke a single word, soft but clear. "Tala." She touched her chest, then pointed to her sister. "Nina." Caleb nodded. "Caleb," he said, touching his own. Names mattered. They set out together, following the girl's sense of direction and Caleb's knowledge of the land. Tracks were faint, but signs revealed themselves to those who looked with patience. A broken twig here, a scuffed stone there. By midday, they found a place where the earth bore the marks of many feet and a dragged bundle. Caleb's pulse quickened. This wasn't good. They didn't have long to wait. A figure appeared on the ridge, tall and still as a carved post. Then another, and another. Caleb felt the old tension coil in his chest. He stepped in front of the girls without thinking, his body remembering 100 moments like this one. The figures descended slowly. At their head walked a woman with hair streaked silver and eyes like storm clouds held at bay by iron will. She saw the girls and broke into a run, pride giving way to relief. Tala cried out and ran to her. Nina followed, sobbing now that safety was real. The woman gathered them close, murmuring words that wrapped around them like a shield. Then she straightened and looked at Caleb. He met her gaze and did not look away. Respect flowed both ways in silence. Finally, she spoke in careful English. You brought them back. I found them, Caleb said. Didn't feel right to leave them. Her eyes searched his face, as if weighing 1,000 stories she'd heard against the truth standing before her. Many would not have done what you did. Caleb shrugged. Many aren't me. A ghost of a smile touched her mouth. I am Ayana, she said. Their mother. She gestured, and 2 men stepped forward, offering Caleb a pouch. He shook his head. No payment. Ayana studied him again, then nodded once. Not payment, she said. A gift. She opened the pouch and revealed a small stone wrapped in leather, etched with symbols that seemed to shift as the light changed. This is a watcher, she said. It reminds the land who you are. Caleb hesitated. He'd learned to be wary of gifts heavy with meaning. But Ayana's gaze was steady, sincere. He accepted it, feeling the cool weight settle into his palm. The men stepped back. The children hugged him fiercely, then returned to their mother's side. As the group turned to leave, Ayana paused. There will be those who come, she said. They will test you. Remember this day. Caleb watched them go until the land swallowed them. He returned to his cabin, the watcher stone tucked safely away. The days that followed were quiet, but not empty. Caleb found his work lighter, his nights less restless. When trouble came, as it always did, it came with warning. Horses shied before unseen danger. Storms broke around his land, not over it. People began to whisper. One afternoon, a group of men rode in from the south, eyes hard, voices sharper. They were looking for Apache. Caleb stood his ground, calm as still water. Words were exchanged. Tension rose. Then a wind kicked up, sudden and fierce, spooking the men's horses. One was thrown, another bolted. The men left in a hurry, curses swallowed by dust. Caleb watched them go, fingers brushing the stone in his pocket. He didn't think of it as magic. He thought of it as balance. Weeks later, Ayana returned alone. She dismounted and approached the cabin, her steps sure. Caleb poured coffee, offered it without ceremony. They sat on crates beneath the cottonwoods, listening to the spring sing over stone. You could leave, she said. Take your kindness elsewhere. Caleb shook his head. This is home. She nodded. Then know this. She met his eyes. The strange reward is not the stone. It is us. When you need help, call to the land. We will hear. Caleb felt something loosen in his chest. Something he hadn't known was knotted tight. He nodded once, honoring the promise without words. When she left, the land felt fuller, as if it had taken a breath and decided to stay. Caleb returned to his work, a cowboy with a watcher in his pocket and a promise in the earth beneath his boots. And when the wind carried children's laughter across the plains, he smiled, knowing that sometimes the truest rewards arrived quietly, the day after you did the right thing.